Right, select key disjoint special substrings. We're given a string s of length n and an integer k. We want to select key disjoint special substrings if it is possible. If it is not, we need to return true. We need to return false, otherwise true. What's a special substring? Any character present in that substring should not appear outside in the string. So any character in a selected substring which is going to be part of the key disjoint special substrings, any character inside that should not be outside the string, outside in the string, which is also involving other k disjoint substrings, say other k minus 1 disjoint substrings. The substring is not the entire string is. Alright. Here if we take this example, then what the question is asking is that if I select A, then I cannot select A alone. I always need to select A, all A's that is possible. Right? So if I select A, I am going to select the first occurrence of A as well as the last occurrence of A for a single group. Right? Same goes for this. Same goes for this C. Same goes for D. D has alone like the first and last occurrence is itself. But this B is not a valid one. So we need to make sure and take care of this because this B is outside. So anything that is already present before this shouldn't be selected as a group. This has the same problem. This is fine. This is fine. This is not fine. And finally, this is also not fine. Alright. So all the ones that are fine, can it be considered as an interval? Right? So the ones that are fine, valid groups, let's consider that and let's take that inside. So 0, 5 or sorry 0, 8 is a valid group. 1, 9 is a valid group. 2, 2 is a valid group. 3, 3 is a valid group. 4 is not a valid group. 6, 6 is a valid group. 7, 7 is a valid group. That's it. These are all the groups or call it intervals, right? And if I want disjoint intervals, I can just convert this problem into something like disjoint intervals, right? Finding disjoint intervals, and that's what we are going to do. So we are going to sort this based on what? Sort this based on the ending index, right? And every time we get an ending index, we are going to take that inside our possibility of counts. So we can sort this intervals and consider taking every first end interval, because these are all valid intervals. So we are going to be greedy and take every ending interval that we can find as we iterate through intervals, through the sorted intervals, and we are going to keep a count. By the end, if our count is greater than equal to k, that means we can have k disjoint intervals or k disjoint special substrings, right? So how can we do that? We can these are just first and last occurrences, so we can store the first and last occurrences of every character as we iterate through string. So that will be a O of n operation. We get the first and last occurrence in a map, and finally there can be only 26 characters, so we can iterate through 26 characters and see for every character, what's the first occurrence and what's the last occurrence. So for that first and last occurrence, we get the index and we iterate through them, and we see that is there any character which has a first occurrence before the ones that we started from, right? For example, if we are doing a first and last occurrence table, that's going to be what? For A it's going to be 0 comma 8, for B it's going to be 1 comma 9, for C is going to be 2 comma 2, and so on and so forth. Now that we have this, we are going to iterate through all the 26 characters, and for every 26 only if it exists inside the map, and for every 26 character, for example, if I get A through every alphabet, if in map of occurrences, example, if I have a A, then I get 0 comma 8 as the first and last index, iterate through 0 to 8 and see if any character has a first occurrence before, let me call this first and last index. Alright, first index to last index, and see if any character inside has the first occurrence before first index or last occurrence after last index. That's it. If not, then push it inside valid intervals. Right, this is what we need to do, and then sort the intervals based on the last index, and then finally be greedy and keep taking the first uh, ending index that we get, and we keep incrementing the count, and lastly we check if count is greater than or equal to k. Right, so let's first do stepwise. Get the first and last occurrence. That's going to be based on characters, so I'll store it in a map as a pair with a value first last occurrence. Alright, and then I am going to have a interval as well. For that I'll declare it later. First let me get a n and if the first occurrence, if the first last occurrence already contains this character, or if it does not contain this character, then I'm going to put this character with this key and uh, yeah, with this key, and lastly this value. Right, and if it doesn't, then I'm going to still update the last character or the second part of this pair to this index. Right, so if it's not existing, I am going to come here, still update the last one. That is the second element of the pair. Otherwise, I will update the first pair as well as the second pair or the second element, right? So this will get me the first, this will get me the last. Finally, we have 26 characters. So let's iterate through those 26 characters and check if these conditions are met or not. So first of all, we need to check if this character exists in the map or not. Only then continue. Otherwise, go to the next character, right? If it doesn't exist, continue. Otherwise, get the first and last index, first index, last index, first, last occurrence of S, or actually character. Uh, let's start iterating from the first index, keep going till the last index, and if the first index or if the first and last occurrence of this character if it doesn't exist in the map, in that case we can continue, but if it exists then it's going to have two things inside the map, the pair, right? So first of all, let's check if it exists or not, because if it doesn't, let's continue to the next character. Alright, so now at this point we can check if s of I dot first, if the first index of this character is less than the first index of the one that we are iterating on. In that case, let's have a boolean flag outside. We'll make that false and break. So I'll have a boolean flag. I'll make it true. Sorry, keep it true initially. Otherwise, I'll break. Else, actually, I missed one thing. Uh, Actually, I think I made a mistake here. The last index, if we have a last index, right? Actually, if we have a character, if we found a character which has a last index greater than the last index of the character that we're iterating on, right? In that case, we can maximize the last index of the one that we are iterating on. This can be maximized to the character that we find out. So what I can do is I can have a new last index which I can initialize to last index, right? So here at this point, uh, rather I can also just maximize this, right? With what? Maximize with this with the last index alone and the value of the last index or the last occurrence in the map, right? And that will be checked here. So if flag is true at this point, then it's good to push inside the intervals array. Alright, this will be basically first index, comma last index. But here is a catch. If this is true, but what if this first and last index is something like this, right? Exactly here. If I am at A, I get 0 and 8. I go to B, I see it's having last index as 9. So the last index from 8 is going to be maximized to 9, right? So this will be my last index now. Is this a valid interval? Because in the problem we are given that substring should not be the entire string S, right? So this is not a valid interval, and we need to make sure that we get a true or false correctly. So here we should get a false, but if we get an interval and k is equal to 1, then this will return true, which is not the case, which should not be the case. That's why we are going to have a check here that the last index minus the first index plus 1 should be less than n. Only then we will push this inside the interval. Finally, we have the interval we sorted based on the last index. So you know what, let me do this instead and just sort it, so that the last index, based on last index, things will be sorted. Finally, I'm going to get the count in my answer, go through all the intervals, which is essentially for each loop. Alright, at this point, uh, if the last interval that I've selected, right, at this point we can have scenarios like this. We have couple of intervals. This is a scenario. These are all sorted intervals, so I'll encounter this first, and then this, then this, then this, right? And yeah, we can have further here. So at this point, we start iterating. I don't see an end here. I don't see an end here. I see a end here. So the first one will be this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, right? So this is the order we'll get the things, and we can do that by just checking the last selected interval and the one that you're going to select, right? So what I'm saying is, if I have something like the last selected interval initially -1, I'm going to uh, get the current interval, check the first index what it is having. If it is having something that is greater than the last selected index, so if we have something like this, so if we have this, this and this selected, then should I select this? I shouldn't. Why? Because it's going to contain characters which are going to be repeating, right? Because I can't select this and this. I've already selected this, so this overlapped interval I can't select. So I should avoid this. How can I avoid? I can check its first index, for starting index of this interval, and the ending index of the last selected interval. That should be in order. This should appear first and this should appear next. So I can have a check if the interval dot first is greater than the last selected interval, in that case I can do a increment and update the last selected interval to the last index of this interval. That is this, right? At this point I can check if answer is greater than or equal to k. If it is, then return true, otherwise return false. Okay, there are a couple of problems. First last occurrence. My bad, this should be dot end, right? Let's see now. Ch is less than or equal to z. This should be a semicolon. Okay, max of last index and first last occurrence. This should be dot second. It's a pair, right? My bad. And the last few problems, intervals. My bad, I didn't declare intervals. Vector of pair of int comma int. Okay, my bad. Intervals dot begin, intervals dot end. Uh, oh, my bad. I declared it inside a loop. Alright, this should be declared above here. And actually I did a mistake here. The last index and first index are reverse for the sorting to be done on the right key. So I need to make sure that I do the sorting based on this comparator LHS dot second less than RHS dot second. Now this should work. Let's see if it does. It does. Let's submit it. So time complexity wise we are having a sort, so that's alone going to take the time complexity to O of n log n. If intervals is going to have something like uh, O of n in terms of the number of intervals that we have inside the vector, and space complexity will also be around O of n, and that's the problem. Thanks.